13th School Committee meeting. I'd like to first open with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ooh. Thank you all for your patience coming out of an executive session and a little bit of technical difficulty. But you know, let me open up with our Danvers Public Schools mission statement. Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and in the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. This meeting is being broadcast on Danvers Community Access Television. And is anyone in the audience recording the proceedings? Okay, no one is. I now call the meeting to order, and we'll start off with items of interest. And for the sake of today, I'll flip things around. I'd like to open up with any community comments. If anyone from the community has any comments, please state your name.
My name is Paul Pollack. I live in Danvers in Precinct 4, and I'm also the chair of the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. And I just want to promote January 20th, MLK Day, and the ceremonies that will be held at the Danvers High School. Everyone's welcome, parents, families. The program starts at 4 o'clock. Well, actually, the program doesn't start at 4 o'clock. The social part of the program starts at 4 o'clock. Somewhere approximately close to 15 minutes of 5, we will begin and hopefully wrap it up somewhere around 5:30, encouraging folks to stay and linger and socialize. The school system, along with Mr. Bauer, and I know Mary Wormers have been working very, very closely with that program for the last 3 months. It's a combination of song, speeches, and food, and whatever, okay? But it's in honor of Dr. King. Everything we do is in honor of Dr. King's celebration. So we welcome everyone. Hope to see you on the 20th, which is a week from today, I guess, Monday.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions at all? Thank you very much.
No, I'll just add, I was at the event last year and it was excellent. I mean, it was a packed house. It was really fun for family and everyone of all ages. I thought everyone, your team and from the schools did a absolutely excellent job. So looking forward to it this year if I can make it over there in time.
We're not taking attendance, so don't worry. However, we've been with the schools now since I believe around 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So it's one of our better moves, one of our probably our top 1 or 2 events. Please, everyone that sees this program, come on over. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the community? Okay. Items of interest from the school committee. Okay, none. We will proceed to Superintendent Mr. Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lopes. For the superintendent's update, we'll start with the wonderful student representative report. We have recognition of Highlands Elementary and their work before the holidays. Project 351 representative and family to be recognized. Our Transportation Operations Coordinator, David Pulsiver, is here tonight just for an introduction. Quick review of the budget timeline update and then communication update. So we'll begin with our wonderful student representatives. The student report.
So we have just a few updates for this month, mainly because we were out of school for almost 2 weeks. And we've been incorporating updates from elementary schools lately, but for this month we just have updates from the high school.
So our first update from the high school, we had our annual trivia tournament, and that is through the community blocks. So we started with each community block had 2 rounds of just preliminary trivia, and then the winnings from those community blocks went into the semifinal tournament. They competed against their other peers in their grade, and then whoever won from each grade, whatever team won, they competed all together with um, themselves. And then we also had a bunch of teacher teams, so it was good to see the teacher participation as well. Um, Another thing that we had was a blood drive in December, and that went really well. We had a bunch of students participate and a couple teachers participate as well.
And then finally, so last week, these two junior students, Lily Delfano and Jack Cronus, held an assembly for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders for their DECA project, which is MS for MS, which is an organization that spreads awareness for multiple sclerosis. In their assembly, they educated us on what exactly multiple sclerosis was, but they also featured two guest speakers that got to share their own personal experiences. It was really interesting to see and hear about how it impacted their life, and it was really well done by both of them.
Is that it? Okay. Any questions or comments? No, as always, Julie and Olivia, thank you so much for sharing that, and we love hearing the updates from the schools. So looking forward to the next one when we have a full month of academic activities. So thank you.
So before we begin with recognition for Highlands, I do want to give recognition across the district. And I try to note in our update the wonderful community service opportunities that our schools follow through with. All of our schools, the elementaries, they raise money for the disaster relief for the hurricane that hit in the late fall. They really just amaze me with their civic mindset and giving back to others. So I think really we should be very proud of our schools. We should be very proud of our students who are advocates for making a better world, as well as our staff and our families for supporting this. And I think we're very blessed as a district to have that mindset, which I think is awesome. But tonight we did want to bring forward Highlands Elementary. They've done another outstanding job, not only for Toys for Tots, but for emergency assistance, donations. And without stealing anybody's thunder, I was going to call forward Principal Bremski. We also have Kelly Boudreau and Edu Gazanowski, key members of the Highlands team, just to give a little thumbnail sketch and receive recognition for their school and their wonderful efforts.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here this evening. Specifically, Edu and Kelly, they're the ones who put this together. Mr. Gasanowski's been doing this for 28 years, and consistency is definitely his middle name. He's really an amazing piece of Highlands and the Highlands community. And also Kelly Bedreau, who's our new social worker this year, who is formerly a 5th grade teacher. She really has really been the connection for our EA program and our EA students. And can't thank her enough for all of the work that she's doing, not just with this program that you're recognizing tonight, but all along with everything else that she does throughout the day. They really are the key to the Highlands community, and I'll let them speak if they so choose to.
Thank you for having us. First of all, the teachers at Highland School is a huge part of the programs that Kelly and I run. Obviously, John is a huge part of it too. We have just about a monthly meeting. Every month we come together and we talk about how we can help the community. And it actually goes right along with our new social studies curriculum. Kelly, you were there the other day when we were talking about it. And kids really make good connections with helping their community out. Also, too, I want to recognize firefighter Adamo Ferrio. He runs the Toys for Tots for Danvers and this region. And so prior to that was Jimmy Brooks, and he and I would connect, and now it's Adamo and I connect, and we have a monthly fundraiser for Toys for Tots. Kids are so excited about bringing in a gift. You would think that they were keeping it, and they get to share it with their classmates, they get to share it with their teacher, and they get to put it in the box. So it's been a joy of mine to do this every year. Jan Collins, who worked here a million years ago, when I first came to Highlands, she ran the program. It was a little bit different. It wasn't Toys for Tots per se, but it was, we called it Adopt a Family. We ran it through the People to People Food Pantry. And it was a little bit different, but same idea. And now we do it with the firefighters in Danvers. And all the firefighters come in. Kids love seeing the firefighters. Firefighter Adamo says a few words, and the kids absolutely love it. So we're just happy to do it. So, Kel?
Edu says that he hates the microphone when I told him he had to speak tonight. Just thanks for having us. We just look to really lead by example, so we're just hoping that the kids are looking and watching, but just short and sweet, thank you.
Thank you so much. Any comments from the committee?
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, and great job, congratulations. You reminded me that prior to the holiday break, Mr. Lopes and I were lucky enough to take a tour of the Highlands and Thorpe School, and I'm sure it's consistent. From what I hear of other people at the other schools, it's consistent. The level of engagement of our staff and the care that they have for our students was incredibly impressive. So I thank you directly for that, and to all of our staff and all of the schools for that level of care. It really is appreciated, and the community should be grateful for that. So thank you.
I would just say thank you for what you do, and thinking ahead, you're planting the seeds with these young people that, yeah, it's fun now, and they're going to realize it's fun later too, and all through their life, perhaps be people who will give back to their community and to the people around them. So it's a great lesson you're teaching that isn't found in textbooks. Thank you.
No, it's definitely, my daughter goes to Highlands, and she can't speak highly enough of the community going on between the teachers and the students. In fact, her teacher asked her, what is one way your dad helps some nights, meaning here, and she said he sleeps. So just throwing that out there. But Edu, you mentioned Jan Collins worked there millions of years ago. She was my 5th grade teacher, so it wasn't that long. But we definitely, we love being a Highlands family, and we appreciate all you guys do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, little bit of a PSA. I want to echo everything that they said. Again, thank you so much for everything that you've done. But it really is consistent with, I believe, all of our schools here in Danvers in regards to the community spirit. But to what Mike Shannon mentioned earlier, like being in the building, seeing the energy of the students, seeing the engagement with the teachers, walking around with Mr. Obremski, and just really looking at the operations internally is incredible. I meet so many Highlands families who say they love being a Highland family. And no offense, I love that, but we have Smith families who love being a Smith family. We have families who love being a Great Oak family. So my PSA is, if you're a parent, get in the buildings, see the students. If you're not from Danvers, get in the buildings, because Mr. Bauer and before her, Mrs. Warners were absolutely fantastic with letting the committee get into the buildings and walk around and see how things happen on a day-to-day basis. So I'm actually not surprised at all, but I want to thank you for continuing that excellence. So we really, really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing. All
Okay.
right.
Moving on, we have recognition. We have our Project 351 representative this year, Principal Colantoni, if you can come up, with John Beasley, who's one of our students, the 8th grade. It's an outstanding program, and I'll have Principal Colantoni give you a little background about Project 351, and if John wants to speak, I'm sure he has a speech ready to go.
Good evening. John and I are thrilled to be up here. So I'll talk a little bit about 351, and then I'll talk more about our process here at the middle school, and more importantly, just talk a little bit about our nominee, John. So if you're not familiar, Project 351 was founded in 2011 by former Governor Deval Patrick. with a focus on young people leading change in their local communities. Each year, an 8th grade ambassador from each of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts is selected by hometown educators that demonstrating the values of kindness, compassion, humility, and gratitude. So Project 351 begins every year with a launch kickoff day in January with a one-day celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and it's a statewide unity effort around youth leadership. This year, the launch day will be January 25th in Faneuil Hall, and it concludes at the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library Museum. From there, after the launch, it's really a full year of students receiving enrichment, training, and mentorship to help them build not only local service projects here in Danvers, but also kind of regionally up here and across the state. So John will be part of a network of other 8th graders, which I'm excited for him to participate in. There's currently 5,229 Project 351 alumni, which John will be joining soon. We're really excited for him to do that. Our process was probably late October. I put out an opportunity for all of our staff, not just 8th grade staff, but all of our teachers who've seen our 8th graders through, really reflect on who would best represent Danvers and Holton Richmond. And so I got many nominations. But one student stood out amongst them all and was nominated the most from our staff, and that's John Veasley. So let's give John a little nice round of applause. I just want to read some of the comments that came through because this is really such an honor, and such, I was telling John and his family, it's really, I think, the most important recognition we can have in our school, and kind of piggybacking on that civic mindset that comes up from the elementary school. So just a few comments. John's maturity and ability to work with diverse groups of peers make him a great candidate for Project 351. John always displays integrity. His optimistic and positive attitude encourages those around him. He works well with all students. John's contributions to the class involve being a model for others with his work ethic, his willingness to take risks, and respect for all perspectives during class discussions. John has consistently demonstrated empathy and kindness to others and is well respected by his peers. And just for me personally, I got to know John last year as I made my way around the school in my first year, and he stood out to me as kind of a quiet, modest leader. But when we named him in front of his classmates a few months ago, the place erupted with cheers from his classmates, which spoke volumes. So without further ado, I just want to congratulate John publicly. Congratulations, John. Thanks. He doesn't have a speech.
Oh, I was waiting for a speech. John, is it okay if I ask you a question? Can you step up to the mic? Well, what do you think?
I'm really excited for this opportunity, and it makes me really happy to be able to participate in something like this because as a person, I try really hard to be a modest, kind person and leader. And I'd like to thank my mom and dad for raising me that way. And I really appreciate all that they've done for me and all that this school has done for me as well.
And one more question. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I'm going to try to pursue a career in like IT because I like working with computers and it's a flexible like schedule for me because I don't like going in the office that much. But I like work. I like my house, so I rather I like it gives me an opportunity to work from home.
Any other questions?
Congratulations, John. I knew last year's representative for Project 351. It's a great program. So it's a great thing to be a part of and take away as much of that as you can and learn from it. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Mom and Dad, congratulations. Nice job. Do me a favor, keep them humble, please. All right? John, congratulations.
And I mean, I don't know, I might be stealing Mr. Bauer's thunder. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say, in the few minutes that you've been standing there, I can tell that you're going to represent our community well, and your parents should be very proud of you. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and have fun doing it.
I tell you this, John, you're going to learn so much about leadership, and clearly you already have that sort of baked in, I think, because just to get to this point where you get chosen by the people who observe you, they see you as a leader. And you should be proud. I know your folks are proud. And the things you learn now, whatever career you choose, they're going to really work for you. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and congrats again. I was going to say, would the parents be okay taking a picture and
We'd love-
capturing this moment?
We'd love to get the parents up and
Yeah,
and the committee as well.
if you guys don't mind. Should we all gather up there? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, let's go this way because it's empty.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Give a couple just to make sure.
Yeah, that was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, our Transportation and Operations Coordinator, David Pulsifer. I'd like to bring him up for an introduction and just to give the committee a quick overview of what he's been doing as he's, I think, been on the job maybe 2 months. 2 months. So just to give a little background, we're very fortunate to have David join our school district. He comes with a lot of experience from industry and transportation, and knowing this is an area that we need to address in order to maximize the resources. He's hit the ground running, and I don't want to take away what he'll be sharing with you, but happy to bring him back for further updates, and you'll see him at the budget time as we're trying to navigate multiple transportation items within our district. But he has hit the ground running, and we're very glad that he's here. So the floor is yours, David.
Thank you, Dan. Yes, well, my name is David Pulsifer, and I think I started October 28th was my first day, and started off driving a bus. I do have my license for that too, and got acclimated with the district. I've been actually on the Danvers contract with Salter before coming here, so I'm familiar with the town and the school system on some level. And I really enjoy being able to play a role in providing students with transportation, right? They need to get to school, they need to learn, and that's one way to get there, right? And, being in this role here, I've seen a lot on the special education side. The big bus is kind of, slow and steady, right? Kind of the same year after year, but special education, from what I've noticed, um, just looking at some of the numbers in the district, it's quadrupled over the last several years. So I hope my goal is to take some of that transportation knowledge that I have and kind of consolidate and look at some of what we're doing now. The district has not had a transportation specific person, right? And I think so. What's been happening is that just been doing what you got to do, get the kids to school. And on some of that, well, that's great because again, in school there is some cost oversight I see. Um, Looking at our vendor compliance, there's a lot of moving pieces. The out of district request comes in, transportation sets up a student. They contact the vendor. That vendor has to have their background check, their queries and all that stuff run. We have to make sure that every year we're fact checking them, making sure that our records are right. So there's a lot of layers to the transportation from getting to school safely and all that stuff. Looking at our DPW vehicles, the town of Danvers has 10 vans in the lot. 4 of them are currently running right now. I think 3 of them are, you know, ready to go, 3 additional. I think there's like 3 that are maybe like maybe processed to go out. But, you know, that's a, you know, I see potential. I don't know, you know, what, you know, we're gonna try to hire some drivers. We're gonna put some ads out, right, and see what we can get from the community. Kind of coordinate with the DPW, maybe do some kind of job fairs. We need to bring in more district vans to offset that high inflation of special education costs. I mean, it's really like a 50% increase going with an outside vendor, so it's huge. Recently, I mentioned to Dan in my interview, I said, you know, we should try throwing out a survey to the district, you know, and what would that look like? So, you know, we discussed it and said, hey, let's shoot for 5 stars, right, and see what we get. So originally, we started out, I was thinking just special education transportation, so we sent it out. We have like 140 students. I think we got like 30 replies back from the families. Then we said, why don't we push it out to the whole district, you know, get some other feedback. So we pushed it out on Facebook, I believe, and we got another 30. And then Dan put it out in the email, his Friday email before break, Thanksgiving break, and we got another 30. So we got about 96 replies, you know. So not a bad baseline on that. And then, you know, some of the key things that came out of that survey. You could probably go to the next slide, Dan.
Okay.
You know, some positive things, the communication. A lot of the things we got were kind drivers who maintain good relationships with children. You know what I mean? So some of the van drivers, our drivers and district drivers actually got a couple good comments, you know, and same with our outside vendors that, hey, like, you know, they love consistency, right? They love a friendly face. It's important to, you know, get a reliable driver behind, especially with the special education department. Some of the negatives that came up was, you know, substitute drivers, you know, on both ends. On the vans, that, you know, there's a lot of, they have driver shortages too, and on the big bus as well. So we had some, you know, issues with that. And when you get a substitute driver, you know, they miss stops and, you know, they do things like that, and that just, you know, makes parents, you know, upset and things like that. And, you know, we want it to be as good as possible, right? So always keeping a good eye on that. You know, safety measures, improved safety measures came up. You know, there was some comments about car seats and things like that. So just, you know, just again going back to vendor compliance. You know, how are they doing? Like, who's checking up on our vendors? So there's a lot of things to tackle in transportation, but just, you know, piece by piece, and like I said, focus on the goal is transporting kids safely, right? And hopefully reducing costs while we're doing that. Yeah. So, no, we're, you know, 381 days. I think I counted as today. You know, into the school year, and you know what I'm, you know, first few months I've just kind of like took everything in. You know, had, you know, met with the staff and, you know, student services, got a lot of input on the special education side of things. McKinney-Vento students, we have a higher number of EA, right, students in the district at the hotels and stuff. So you know, just making sure that our vendors are compliant now. You know, I'm reaching out. I've made a you know, vendor checklist, and I'm going to send it out to them. You know, for get a roster of their drivers and stuff like that, and be able to, you know, meet with human resources and make sure queries and everything else are in place. You just saw in the news, right, about the governor, and they were doing checks, and their staff didn't do queries, right? Things happen. So just overall, just making sure, doing the right thing. You know, hoping to get a couple drivers hired by February. That would be a good test to see where we can draw and help. And you know, one of the things I found out is that there's no standard operating procedures for, transportation on like, hey, like, when a student gets an out-of-district IEP and needs transportation, what is the process? How does it flow? It comes to transportation, and how do you put it out to bid? What are you looking for? Things like that on that end. Uh, Looking at invoices and pricing, trying to get a baseline on how we can consolidate that stuff. And so there's a lot of system processes that we're going to kind of put on paper so that if someone else has to take over or something, they have a visual. Probably by April, I believe the reset for special education list comes out. So then that's really a good chance to say, okay, these 100 students, how can we consolidate the routes? How can we improve them and make them more efficient than what we are doing now currently? Which kind of rolls into checking out our vendors towards the end of the year, like anyone else. Like, I keep a complaint log, so when parents call, I save it. So if the vendors are getting multiple complaints for late pickups, we can call them on that and address that. And then by the end of the year, we'll be looking at FY26 and what we're going to do for routes and if there's any adjustments on things like that. So, my goal is to just provide the school committee, the town of Danvers, with a clear, visual, what transportation looks like for Danvers Public Schools. So, if you guys have any questions.
First of all, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I love the organizational aspects of what you're bringing to the position from what you've said. Couple of questions. One, what is the employment market looking like now? Because we know really since COVID, it's been difficult to find drivers for us, and we think industry-wide, at least that's what I've heard. So how are you doing in terms of being able to find drivers and bus monitors and all that?
Well, I'm based on my past industry where before I came here. I mean, they spent a lot of money on bringing in help, right? On big bus and special ed. It's not easy out there, right? There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of anybody can get a van and pretty much start a 7D business, right? For the most part, right? So I think it's about community involvement. Getting out to the schools, trying to get the memos out with the principals, saying, there's got to be some, people in town that want to help with. And that's kind of, I think, the target line is to try to reach. We're a district, we want drivers from Danvers community, right? We don't want a driver from Salem. Not that just it's not economical for someone to drive from Salem to Danvers, half hour to do 2 hours of work. So you really have to focus in town, and I think it's just really focusing in the community. So.
The only other question I have is, are you going to have a role, and Dan, jump in if I'm but are you going to have a role in working with other districts in terms of the special education transport to see if there are efficiencies of scale we can work out?
Sure. So last year, as you know, we joined the consortium in terms of the transportation program.
Yep.
Where we're looking to pool our resources. We've submitted all the information in terms of all of our runs, in terms of the needs that we have. So they're breaking this down now to see if they can consolidate routes and we can basically cost share.
Sure.
And that we're hoping can get launched. I know Pam Crum has done a lot of work, our business manager, with the consortium as well, and talking with neighboring districts how we can, particularly with the consortium, but other out-of-district placements that are close by. Keep in mind, there are a lot of requirements that may be necessary in terms of monitors and any health situations.
Yep. Sure.
But they're looking, hopefully, as a group, considerable savings, which we're happy to at least keep it level. So that's coming. And David has been working with Pam, as well as Christina and her special education team to look at ways we can work to reduce the cost.
Thanks.
Yeah,
you.
I would say it's not just like Dan said about the consortium. I mean, it's a great thing what they're doing. It makes perfect sense to me. But it's also reaching out to the sister districts in our community too, and kind of get a transportation coordinators meeting, check in. I want to reach out to these other districts as well. So.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, guys. All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you all.
Thanks, David. Like I said, you'll see David back at the budget time. He's been working closely with Pam and our student services and working on that. And I just wanted to provide a quick update on the budget timeline where, we've been beginning our work and have begun our work. The budget subcommittee will meet January 22nd, 6:30. It's a virtual meeting. And one of the things that we're working on is our slides that will take place in our AC meeting, which is Administrative Council, at the end of January. Submit them to the school committee on the 29th, so you have an opportunity to review our budget slides for the presentation for the budget workshop on February 3rd. We want to give you enough opportunity to review the slides, and we'll have the same format as before, as we did last year, where each department will make a presentation in terms of their needs, from salaried and non-salaried positions. Pam Crum and myself will do the opening in terms of like where we're standing and all those pieces, and obviously have an opportunity for dialogue with the school committee in each presentation. Right, we'll have our elementary present as a group, our middle school, high school, transportation, and student services will all present as well. And that's really important for us because the feedback from that workshop will help us make any adjustments that the committee deems necessary, and we look at ways we can improve what we're looking at for budget asks and bring it back to the subcommittee again on the 13th and review that one more time. And then Pam, after that feedback, will put together the budget book for the school committee on the 14th, which is right before February break. So that way you have an opportunity to review the budget book, and our hearing is February 24th. That's when we'll meet, discuss the budget, and look forward to push the final number onto the town. And then once that happens, then we'll make the presentation on March 15th to the select board. It's a Saturday morning. We already confirmed that with Rodney at the town level. Pam will work on the budget book once it passes the school committee. She'll, I think, get that out on March 3rd, I think. And then once that goes to the select board, then we'll move on to FinCom, which is sometime in April. I don't have the date yet. And then by that point, we'll go to town meeting in May. So that's the budget cycle as we see it. We've been doing a lot of work. Mary and I and Pam will be meeting with all of our directors and principals over the next 2 weeks just to really comb through all of our personnel, work through all the non-salaried asks, but really look at maximizing our resources and obviously prioritizing our decisions as we bring forward our presentation at the workshop. So I just wanted to just give you those dates just to make sure that you're informed as well as the public, and I make sure that in the update that they have those dates. We're starting the budget workshop at 6, a little earlier because there's more dialogue, that just anticipating more time will be needed. Any questions? No.
I was just going to say, I think I've seen this budget process evolve over the past several years, and I do think that we landed on a pretty good open communication, and we're all able to give some feedback. So I do think that this is a strong system that we have set up. So nice job of that.
Thank you. And great feedback from the school committee, and we look to refine that even further this year, and just to make sure that we're able to present all of our needs. And I think it's important that you hear all the multiple voices, because ultimately when we put together the budget, it's not just us turning it over to the school committee, because it is the school committee's decision on that point. I think it's important to hear all the things that go into it, so we like that part of it. Thank you. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the next piece, as requested in the previous school committee meeting. Just looking for some communication updates. We did reach out to our legal for guidance on student privacy and transparency, when faced with disciplinary issues or items of big events, like what can we share with the public about student incidents and disciplinary actions. I did forward the legal brief from our attorney, but I just boiled it down into some talking points here. And I just want to note that with our communication, it's certainly one that we want to make sure that we are cognizant, because when you deal with situations like this, you have very vulnerable situations here. You have families that are on both sides, so it's really important for us to be timely with our communication, and that's an area that I want to make sure that we're working with our principals and all of our directors, and just be as transparent as we can, but knowing that we have to protect student rights, and it may not make people happy sometimes with decisions and what we can share and can't share, but I think that's an area that we need to really focus in on to make sure that even if it's an update that we don't have all the information, just to let people know that we're working on it, because you got to put yourself in the shoes of those that are on the side that are their child may be facing discipline or have been involved in a serious situation, and it's very sensitive. And I think it's really on us as a district to make sure that we are on top of that and sensitive to that as well. Um, and obviously, we're balancing complying with federal and state laws with student privacy. There's some recommendations in here from our attorney, and again, we'll keep working on this, and we have a school committee policy in terms of public complaints and chain of command that we'll talk about. And I know Gabe and I had an earlier conversation in terms of just sharing with families, like if there's an item that is boiling up, like what can they do for a chain of command to start that process of communication, right? And I think as a district, this is something that we always need to review in terms of making sure that we provide that with the public in terms of this is happening, where do I go and who do I talk with? So obviously, not to go through all the items, but we balance with FERPA, student records, and then certainly knowing that we have to be very careful about the restrictions about releasing specific identifiable student information. Now, directory, there's exceptions in terms of that, like the student directories that are out common, which families, it's just common knowledge about some items, but very specifically, when you're dealing with student rights, we have to be very mindful of whom is sharing the information and how we disseminate it. And that's really our major responsibility. And that's where it gets to be challenging because, like I said, there's very sensitive items that occur, very sensitive topics, but we have to make sure that we have our mindset to communicate as well as we can. And look at what we can share. There's limited disclosure of what we can share only with written consent from a student's parent or guardian. And who has access to the sensitive information? It's authorized school personnel. Those that have a specific need to work with the student, such as administrators, teachers, and counselors. And then the legal exceptions, like God forbid there's a major health or safety emergency, court orders that come into play, and public records requests. And when public records requests come out, we do obviously have a process we work through with our attorney just to make sure that things that are redacted that don't identify students in student records. The public records exemption is a challenge, and we work with our attorney closely on that. And then certain limited items of bullying cases, which are very challenging as well in terms of identifying who's the target, the aggressor. When we share with parents, basically, as it pertains to the child specifically. And the notifications of principals have to comply with privacy regulations as well. And that gets to be challenging because certainly that goes back to the piece of, what can we share and what can't we share. I'll show you the recommendations that come out. But I think the challenges are really clear is that the public interest in school incidents must be weighed against privacy rights of students, and we have our obligation to protect the rights of students while maintaining transparency as best we can, and that's a challenge. Again, an area that we need to continue to work on with our leaders, but also communicate with the community as well. The policy, the KDB, this is just part of it, basically, gets into the nitty-gritty of records and the protection of records. The recommendations for public communication, the best practices, educating the community. Provide training for our staff, handouts or information for parents and guardians, and explanations about privacy laws. That's an area that we can definitely work on with our staff, certainly provide more information to the community and explanations about privacy laws. I think that's always important, and it's just when do you do that and when do you make the reminders about these things? It shouldn't just be if something pops up in the community or something specifically in a school. It's just good practice, and I know that working with our leadership team, those are areas that we'll continue to try to refine more for our staff in terms of how can we educate the community on these items when they do pop up. Certainly general statements, so if there's something major that happens, always acknowledging the incident, that's critical. And assure the community that appropriate actions were taken, but certainly emphasize, the limitations we have on privacy. And that's true with when dealing with specific individual items that may occur at the school level, being able to acknowledge and work with families. And certainly, it's always a difficult when you're on the side where something may have happened to your child, or on that other side where you want to know all the information. And, unfortunately, we can't share the specific items that occurred on the other side of the discipline or actions we've taken, but just really, acknowledge and certainly reassure that we've taken the appropriate actions to the best of our abilities. And then certainly the public statements in response to incidents, things that arise to high-profile incidents, providing a general statement confirming our response, but also without violating privacy regulations. So it's really it's a balancing act that we face. But I think the most important thing is that although the policy protections govern the release of student information, I think we need to make sure that we do the best that we can to increase transparency. And I know, when working with families, if there's something that can't be shared, it's the response and how we do that to ensure that we are understanding of the situation, we're following the procedures as best we can, and not just dismiss and say, sorry, we can't talk about it, but be able to talk about what we can and what we can't, I think is an area that we can always work on from a leadership standpoint. And again, always take into account that, there might be things, a case may take several days to solve sometimes, so there may not be immediate information, but being able to, just not let somebody hang and just come back and say, well, we don't have things quite finished yet, but we're working on it, we'll be back with you, right? Returning calls and making sure that, and we do, but making sure that we are vigilant about that piece. But also be very clear about, reasons behind restricted information sharing, I think is important. Again, that is an area that we can work on for sure. And again, it's balancing privacy, public interest, and the legal requirements, which this is not a mystery, but I think it's all in the issue of having those discussions when dealing with sensitive issues, but also goes back to informing the community like what we can and can't do. And again, it's not that we're not doing things, but just trying our best to protect students, but protect everybody. Um, and I wanted to pull out the piece about the complaint process overview, and I know this is actually in our policy manual, right? Policy KE, which is to ensure efficient handling of by appropriate staff members, resolve issues. So if a complaint comes out, what is the process, right? Going through the proper channels, it's timely, which is key, and respectful, transparent process, and then proper documentation for follow-up. So really, and this is basic, this is right out of the policy manual, but if there's an item in the classroom, certainly reaching out to the teacher, whether it's instruction, learning materials, something that may have happened, because the teacher is the one that is working with the item, working with the child, for sure. And certainly, if there's a situation, we hope that it's resolved at that level. And usually most things are resolved at that level. But if not, that knowing that if that's unresolved, then moving it to the next level, which would be the building administrator, to share that piece. And then me working with the building administrators to make sure they go back, tie the teacher in to see if whatever resolution there is, we work on making sure that that works. And then obviously, if that's not resolved at the building level, then it would come to the superintendent level. And then we work on more of a comprehensive plan to resolve at the building level. Then if not, then bring in the school committee if the complaint's not resolved at the earlier level. So that's all right in our policy. This might be hard to read because there's a lot of words, and I apologize. I tried to cut it down, and I'll continue to work on this with our team and work with the school committee. But even breaking this down further for conflict resolution at all steps. So this could be in athletics, it could be something that may have happened in a classroom or just in general in the school, but helping identify and clarify what is the nature of the item, and then being able to initiate contact and who's the appropriate person the family should reach out to, right? Request a meeting, right? Request the time, propose a time to meet in person or phone, whatever is convenient for the family. Um, you know, collect relevant information, and then prepare for the meeting to make sure that you have key points and things you want to discuss, and then work on a solution-based focus on this. Have the meeting, share your perspective, clearly explain concerns, and then collaborate on solutions. Again, this is always, something that's important, is being able to work on this together, to collaborate, to come to a resolution. And then once a resolution is made, then just following up and making sure that things are summarized, and there's a window there for families that they can check to make sure that things are monitored. And then, when to escalate if things aren't working where they should be, then you move through that process. And again, this is about being able to work together more effectively. That's the bottom line, to resolve conflicts in a constructive manner, and knowing that decisions are tough, and sometimes people may not agree with everything, but we need to do our best to communicate effectively with families to ensure that their child is getting the best that they need at that time. So definitely open for more work in this area, but this is what I wanted to share as an update. So, um, knowing as a principal and as assistant principal being on both sides when dealing with sensitive issues, it is important to show empathy to make sure that from the administrator standpoint, that doesn't mean that we're not following our guidelines, but staying consistent with that. But it's always a vigilance on our end to make sure that we're always in a good mindset, that we're communicating effectively and clearly with families.
Hey, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just, Dan, it seems to me from what you said, and I think you get this, finding ways to disseminate the limitations in terms of what we can share to all the parents in the district and the community generally is really key, even if it means, I don't know if this would be something for the handbooks, something for an email dissemination to people in town. Because in the world of social media, we all know what happens. First of all, anything that we have to anticipate that anything that comes up is going to find its way into the public, um, and that it may or may not be accurate. The problem is it'll spread like wildfire, but it may not be accurate information. So, number one, we let people know the limitations of what we can say, but then, as you pointed out, be as transparent as possible when it comes up. And I think all we can do is try and get ahead of the news as it gets out, or the information as it gets out, or the disinformation as it gets out. And it seems to me your plan sort of anticipates all of that. But it is a real challenge because we talk about it as something that we understand and we're used to. But for a public that is demanding and maybe concerned about an event, and things just tend to spiral. And in this world now, people want to know everything and they want to know it right away. And that presents some real challenge for all of us.
Well, it does, if I may, Chair. In terms of putting yourself, that empathetic view, putting yourself from the parent's standpoint. And I'm not talking necessarily something that's at a broad level, but something that may have happened in the classroom or with another student, and understanding that that's their child and their concerns, and we have to make sure that we acknowledge that, but also make sure that we're consistent, but also, as you said, explain our limitations, communicating, and that's really tough. And I remember as principal and assistant principal, it's hard when you're just saying we're following, we're doing the best we can, and you as a parent want to know like what has the school done and taken actions, and you share what actions that may not be necessarily discipline based or what might be resolving. There's some specifics that you won't be able to share, and that was always a tough thing. But being able to be very clear on that, but trying your best to be as empathetic and communicating in a timely manner is really important.
I appreciate on the overall picture you're trying to be systematic about this. That's a great approach, I think.
Right, because you're looking at, right, you have, if it's an issue, conflict between two students, trying to make sure that you protect, because they are our students, and also, at my level, just protecting the district as well. So just, anything that seems to be at a level that we need to consult with our attorney, we do, but that doesn't mean for everything, obviously, at the building level, things like that.
I was just going to say, I think it's good to put this in writing because I think a lot of these it's obviously a case-by-case basis, right? We're going to inevitably see a lot of conflict one way or another, some very small, some on the larger scale that, unfortunately make its way into the news or something. Hopefully not anytime soon, but it is a tricky balance. But a lot of the stuff that you put in here does make sense. And, one of the things that stuck out to me is the escalation, right? The chain of command. A lot of things can probably be solved at that teacher level. They don't necessarily have to hit the nuke button and go right to the top, right? You can just kind of work your way up. But I can just envision a lot of parents that have a kid, or it might be a very sensitive issue, and just might go right to Dan Bauer or right to the school committee on that. So, hopefully on a case by case basis, if something can be solved at the teacher level, I would encourage people to do that.
And I'd like to add on that one too, 100%. So the whole key with the conflict resolution, the chain of command is not to limit actions or limit, solving a problem. It's actually to make sure the problem gets solved because, again, putting my principal hat on it, if things come to me, you try to make sure that those that are directly involved can answer those questions to work the child. But a lot of times, if you're in the middle as the administrator, you're running back and forth to get information, and time is elapsing, right? And then messages get lost through direct conversations. So, and that was a challenge at times too to explain. I'm trying to solve this, but sometimes when you move up too far, it can get in the way of effectively and quickly solving it. But we do have measures in place, like if it doesn't make it, then there's another level where we can come to some resolution. So I think that's always important to point out. It's not to hinder, it's actually to is effective. But I do take your point about reminders, and it goes back to communication at the beginning of the year, or at some point to communicate to our families and our staff, like these are the expectations.
Right. Good. Thank you.
Well, thank you for addressing this in such a timely way. I know I brought it up last week, and I think we forget that we do have a community of people who do follow our meetings really closely. And after bringing that up, I can't say how many parents came up and said, "Wow, that was really great." And I did get some follow-up items. And to echo what Josh said, I love seeing this in writing. And this isn't really addressing, the bigger public things. It's really about classroom specific, one-to-one type of events. But I mean, even a suggestion here would be if something does happen in a classroom, this should be an email packet that goes out immediately. Like even once a parent raises an issue, almost an acknowledgement of thank you for raising the issue. This is the process. Even if it has to be emailed hundreds of times or 10 times back to the same parent is absolutely fantastic. And I think there's still and I know we haven't touched on it, but the gray area where isolated environment, one classroom, a clear understanding of who the parties are, and hoping to resolve things there. And even though it has to be escalated, but there's clearly instances where parents know who's involved no matter what. So this isn't talking about a public thing, but even when that happens, to your point of letting the parent know that, something is happening, as opposed to the blanket, like, I can't share anything, I hear you, and there's no follow-up. So I think this is a great first step. I think it shows respect and clarity for, privacy, the parents, the victims, and maybe we still have a way to go, but this is a great first step. So thank you for, taking on the new business item that was brought up and really taking the time and giving a detailed response and action that we can all follow up on and build on. So I appreciate it.
And if I can add, Chair, on that piece, in terms of improvement, working together, one of the things that we do every year is we meet with our attorney just to cover the bullying, harassment, Title IX changes, which there have been changes and it's actually changing again, but also working in terms of communication and working with our team as well, and further work because unfortunately, when you aren't receiving information, you put together your own narrative. But I think knowing like what is happening just in a general standpoint and working individually, you do the best that you can. But we definitely have work on our end and certainly want to continue this. And I'm happy to report out further as we go along to any updates and changes. But even on this last piece with this, just the resolution guide, again, this could apply to all, the athletics as I mentioned, other entities within our schools as well.
Sorry, didn't turn on the mic. Now we're moving on to new business, and we have the monthly budget report.
Good evening.
Good evening, Pam.
So this evening's or this month's budget report reflects one, I guess, substantial change from the last month, which is that it includes a more comprehensive projection of some of our special education expenses for this year. I I think the transition to the new accounting system resulted in a delay in sort of gathering all that data in one place and then me accessing it appropriately. So the tuition is forecast when we consider the other places that will pay the tuition, but out of the operating budget right now, we're looking at about a $67,000 shortfall. And in the transportation area of the budget for special education, we're looking at about $400,000, which is a kind of a shocking number on its face. But I will also say that I do think in some ways there is a good news story to be told in that if you were to look at last year's December budget report, those two things together were $963,000 in the hole. And this year it's less than $500,000 between the two. So I do think that it represents kind of a leveling or a curving, almost a lowering of the increases that we've seen. But we still have challenges, as David Pulsifer mentioned earlier in the meeting. I'm hoping that these numbers can still come down, particularly the transportation ones, as we go to hire drivers for the vans that we have access to, that the district or the town and therefore the district own. We may be able to provide more of the in-district transportation to preschool students, for example, with town drivers as opposed to having to contract it out. So I'm hoping that these numbers will come down over the next month or two, particularly the transportation one, but I still think that the context of where we've been over the last couple of years, while it's not good news, it is not as bad as it has been in the past. The other thing that I will say is that the district is still waiting for the first payment from the state in emergency assistance funding. That was scheduled to happen in December. It hasn't come yet, but it is promised. So I check the state vendor website periodically to just see if I can see something scheduled. I don't see it yet, but we do expect that that is going to be available to help us to address some of these budgetary challenges that we continue to face.
So if I can add on that piece, which we've had contact with DESE over the weekend. We had a call today with a Representative Karen's, as well as the DESE contact we've been working with that runs the emergency assistance programming. So we're looking later this week or early next week, we'll receive the email to start the process of that allocation, which will certainly offset a lot of this in terms of the homeless transportation and the added personnel. And then in addition, if one of the things we're looking for is the conditions as the shelters are changing and the conditions are shifting. There's still a commitment to funding not only this allocation, but looking to continue the daily funding that we're looking for the remainder of the school year, and that's what we're waiting for confirmation with the supplemental budget that's been filed. So there's a lot of advocates that are working to ensure that the funding maintains through the end of the school year, right? Because things are moving quite rapidly. But we count on this because as students may move to other schools, if we're the school of origin, they wish to stay, or any homeless student, they have the obligation and the right to, and we cost share with districts. And it's a lot of work that Pam and our transportation and as well as just our budget operations are looking to make sure that we work on this. But and again, we talked about circuit breaker as the other mechanism to help offset this, which we used last year. So and I look back to last year's budget report as well, and certainly, we look for the encouraging news, which if you look at, some of the special education piece kind of waning down, that's good. But we have used more contracted services this year because we're trying really hard to build our special education programs, and we've utilized constellations for our learning centers as well as our therapeutic. In fact, they're doing professional development for us on Friday with our administrative instructional assistants. But also they're providing a lot of guidance to building the programs. So we're investing. We've taken every penny from last year, and again, these extra fundings will help make this work. So overall, we as Pam alludes to and points out that we have other mechanisms that will be able to cover this. So once we get that update of the funding, I'll certainly let the committee know.
I will also say that the assistant superintendent has been writing a lot of grants. And every time I get a notification of another award, it provides an opportunity not only for the district to do more, but to also take what we had already planned to do and pay for it in a different way. So I'm very grateful whenever I get one of those notifications and for her hard work writing those grants.
I'll apologize for the math, but I mean, I think the glaring item on this is looking at costs that are just completely, almost completely out of our control. 60% of the overage is transportation, where the superintendent, the school committee, the town literally have no control of whatsoever. Outside of the efforts that we're putting in and investing in for special education to try to hopefully offset this. I mean, it's been, you know, we're still 400K over, but to your point, last year was almost $1 million over. And I think it's just something that, you know, hopefully at the state level, we can hope for more support around. But it's, I mean, I'll say personally as a committee member and as a resident, you know, doing everything that we can, and then year over year, it's never fails. Transportation, tuition out. And again, we are putting in the investment and putting in the effort as a committee to try to offset this. But this is just something that just continues to run away from us. So, I mean, thank you for the level of detail. And I look at the budget, which looks almost pristine outside of some contract adjustments. It's year over year transportation. And I think this, you know, district is doing everything it can to stay within the budget, within its control. And it's so disheartening to see that. And we got to try to continue to figure out a way to combat this. And those are my comments. And I'm sure others have some things to share.
Very quick question on the issue with homeless transportation / emergency assistance.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still transporting anyone, or have they moved families out of the hotels now? Or?
No, we are still transporting homeless students that are at the hotels in a variety of ways. Some of them, well, they may have moved from the hotels and been housed in another community, but they want to return to Danvers for the rest of the school year.
Okay.
And so we share the cost of the sending community to bring them back to Danvers. That works in both directions. So sometimes we're paying for the transportation, sharing it with the district where the student wants to return to, but they're being housed in Danvers. And then, yes, we do have our yellow buses going to the hotels. And there's all kinds of transportation going on.
Okay, thank you.
Point of clarification, though, those funds are expected to come from the state. We're waiting for reimbursement for transportation of emergency students.
So there are different buckets, and we have all kinds of mechanisms. It's not the same for every student. That kind of falls into the different buckets. There's a state process that typically would reimburse a district based on our filing of our end of year report the following year. So you have to provide the payments in FY24, and they will reimburse you in FY25. Because of the unusual circumstances associated with the emergency assistance program, the state is sort of advancing that reimbursement at a quicker pace for some of the students. And so we file a report a couple times a year. We did it twice last year. We're doing it at least once this year, where we basically report those expenditures early, and they give us the reimbursement early to help us actually close the books so that we can pay for everything this year that we need to be able to pay for. But then you can't double dip. You don't get those. We'll still report the expenditures, but you don't get the reimbursement a second time. So that is one source of the money. Another source is the $104 a day per student that wasn't captured on our Chapter 70. That money is available for basically whatever educational purposes we need it for, and that will include transportation. It did last year when we had that money. I did use some of it to close the year, paying for some of the transportation that we had to pay for.
And if I may, Chair, we're still waiting for the Chapter 70 allotment this year. We'll find out by the end of January where that is. So we're hoping for an increase in that piece. Last year, we were very close to moving to another section of the Chapter 70 funding, which would have brought more money and funding into our community. So we're waiting to see what that will be. So we're anxiously waiting, to see. Hopefully, there should be an increase on that.
Thanks for the clarification on that. Okay, no one else? Thank you, Pam.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Additional new business items. The superintendent recommends approval of the Danvers High School 2025-2026 Program of Studies. And there's a presentation.
I'm ready, and typically, if I may, Chair, Principal Demaro and his high school team would present this. Principal Demaro probably doesn't mind if I say this, but he was very under the weather. He's back in the saddle today, but we said you get the night off. I've played principal before, and Mary's been very much hand in hand with the high school, so we're going to present the program of studies, and as we note, there's only one vote required because we're not setting policy for this. And the program of studies, as you know, is the actual piece that guides programming at the high school level. And working with Peter and his team, they really are not looking to make many changes next year except to add a few courses. So the most of the program of studies from last year will carry over. Really, the main highlights for the committee, I think it's very exciting, some of the courses that they're looking to offer. We have a description of each course, and Mary will jump in as needed as well because she's worked hand in hand with the high school team. But when I look at this from our position, looking for ways like what can we do for programming that can engage students, that's relevant to students, and really matches what's happening not only in the community but in the greater world. All of these really answer that question. So I think these are really, really great courses, and some really good thought has gone into this. I think the big piece too is offering another AP course, AP seminar, which is an English course. So as you may note, I believe we offer, is it 22 high school, which is a very healthy number of advanced placement courses. I think there's only 27 or 28 total in the AP family. But we would like to add another one next year, the seminar, which in itself falls under English. But the good thing about the seminar, which I think is very important, is that it's being able to take information from multiple sources and synthesize to, through presentations, oral, written, and visual, all the 21st century skills that are really important for students, but at a very high level, advanced placement level. And this is an English class, which is great. So being able to offer this, I think, is another opportunity for those that might think outside of the box of students, right? That may look at complex problems and break it down into small pieces. Collaboration, communication, all those things that are critical, but done under the lens of ELA. So this is a very exciting course. I'll go through them, and if there's any specifics, please feel free to reach out to Mary and myself on this. Project Lead the Way, as we know, this is a huge part of our pathways, and this is the applied learning, the experiential learning that's so critical. And I think we're building another course called Aerospace Engineering. I would love to have taken this course, right? And this also can fulfill an engineering or science course. So we have our traditional offerings for science, but this is one that fills that need as well. And there's no prerequisite for this, which is important to note, so that it's really open to a wide variety of students, which I think is fantastic. But just getting into space flight and aerodynamics and all those things, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but I look at this, I'm like, this would be a really cool class to take. It's a high-level science, it's applied learning, it's in the pathway. To me, this is, again, to boil it down, really, I'm very proud that they're offering, that will offer this class. I'm sure it'll be a very popular class. Right? And the next one under science, environmental science pathway, which is a new pathway, is recyclable energy, which, as we know, is a broad context, but something that students can take to really learn more about recyclable energy to apply as they get into the pathway for environmental sciences. And I think this exposure is really, really important. The only prerequisite is biology, because there are some concepts that would apply, but that's for college prep and honors, so it's not meant to keep kids out of this. It's a semester-based course, so I think it's really exciting. And really timely because, as you know, we've gone solar as a district. Right? The next batch of courses, I think, offer up really those who might be more civic-minded and social justice, community and connections, really building restorative communication and healthy relationship skills. This is under health and wellness, semester-based course. I think this one is really like just helping kids understand the role of bystanders, how to intervene, and really how to be an upstander as well. And that fits well within the health curriculum as well. And then a full year-long class of confronting bias, working towards equity. Really, this is a neat course because it's really one that it's under technology or fine arts. I think they're just trying to find a spot for it. But really, confronting bias and working towards equity, again, that more civic-minded lens, which I think this would appeal to a lot of students, regardless of where they want to go in life. I think it's a great opportunity to offer this course. And at the end, as you know, our visual arts are very strong at the high school. We're very blessed with such outstanding teachers and programming, but the arts production, which basically allows now to get into a more hands-on variety of everything from the logistical piece of music, theater, and art. So it's more of a broad piece, very project-based approach. Again, that's open to all students. There's no prerequisites to take this. And you can get honors credit, as you notice, for some of these, depending if you want to own up to that in some capacity. So, Mary, I don't know if I left anything out. I did? I used to do this back in a previous existence. But I don't know if you have any specific questions before discussing and hopefully moving to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go to a motion, and then we'll open up for discussion. Okay, so motion to approve the superintendent's approval of the Danvers High School 2025-26 program of studies. Second, discussion?
These are all elective courses, so students can take them if they want to take them. And when it comes to electives, to the extent that we can increase our offerings, I say the more the merrier, because some of these things are really going to excite students to take, and that's terrific. So the more we can give our students, the better.
I agree. I think the more, these are really, really cool courses. And I think the one thing that I would just ask is that we find a way to get this where, aside from the millions of people watching us tonight, I think we should try to get the word out to, the middle school kids, right? As they start to look, it's no secret that we have a tech school in our backyard and a great prep school in our backyard too. So to really get the word out about how great these cool courses are, I mean, I can see some kids really, grabbing onto some of these, like in aerospace. I mean, it's just really something very unique that we should try to, advertise or find a way to promote. So, nice job with this.
I think a broadening of the curriculum is great. Agree with Eric, more the merrier, because when students select courses based on interest, the learning becomes deeper and more impactful. So I'd love this trend to continue every year as we go. Tap into the skills of our staff, the interests of our staff, and see what else we can add. Nice, very nice.
So a friend of mine had asked me about how we keep kids from going to the tech, which I would never want to do per se. But I think that his point was when we were in high school, he was at Danvers High alum, we had wood shops, things like that, a diverse set of studies for extracurricular, not extracurricular, within the curriculum. But I think these classes would, as Josh was touching upon, would draw interest. Because with a great school like Tech in our boundaries, a lot of kids are going over there because the presentation at the 8th grade, from what I understood, is like that's something new. Whereas our presentation at the high school we're continuing going the same way. I think something like this will jump it to build some excitement. There's a lot of things in here that I think students will grasp and find interesting and new. So I'm really happy to see that we're expanding.
I guess my question is specifically for aerospace and engineering, I think all of the courses are fantastic. But when I think of like aerospace engineering, I'm pretty certain I saw that Raytheon does a pretty decent donation or contribution to Essex Tech, and I don't know if there's any partnership or cross breeding of content between us and them. And to his point, it's not about keeping kids out, but is there an opportunity to maybe collaborate with some of these courses, even if it's friendly, like a friendly A&D competition or something, just something to kind of bring kids together. But this is all fantastic, so I'm all for it.
If I may, Chair. And Josh, you bring up a huge point where, yes, we're a comprehensive high school, but just looking at the opportunity, so, you have your traditional science track, for example, like you have your biology, your chemistry, but here you have options where you can take engineering, where you may find your way through. And we have a curriculum night coming up, which I think is important. I know we're looking for ways to interact and get the middle schoolers up at the high school to walk through the electives. And Sean, you mentioned, we have a tremendous shop, but we have a CAD lab right next to that where we can manufacture and advanced manufacturing. So the more we can promote this, because students may not know where they want, but we certainly can provide those opportunities. And we're going to go over to the tech, I think, the 28th of January to talk, what collaboration can we do further for facilities and stuff, because we have to work together. There's a lot of opportunity here, but I think at the end of the day, I'm excited because I know kids have options for this, and we're really diving into that applied experiential learning where it's hands-on and they're getting into it. And like you said, Mike, it becomes real. It's relevant to them. Yeah, there's hard work here for sure, but at the end of the day, I think that's what we're trying to do so our kids are prepared when they leave here.
I was just going to add that when you brought up Raytheon, that we are part of like a career pathway program with the Department of Education. So like the science courses that are listed up there are part of engineering pathway or environmental pathway. And when we committed to doing that work, we're committed to making external partnerships. So Raytheon could be somebody that we go and now in our engineering, since we're offering this type of class, we could reach out to Raytheon now and make them part of our pathway.
Awesome. That is absolutely exciting. And now we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the curriculum, say aye.
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 Opposed, none. Motion carries. On to special education update. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight, I just wanted to take a moment to provide an update regarding 4 areas that were highlighted within the special education audit. Those being special education programs and continuum of services, students with disabilities profile, instructional assistance, and short and long-term planning for special education. We hired Constellations Behavioral Services to conduct an audit of our learning centers pre-K through 8th grade, and what we are working on now are creating program descriptions, entrance and exit criteria, and staffing patterns for these programs. Our next steps are to have an audit of our therapeutic learning centers, which actually span K to 12th grade. So that is a different branch of our learning centers that we really need to identify what therapeutic supports, interventions, and staffing needs to look like for those programs. And that will be conducted this spring. We're also looking to redefine our language-based program. We started by dissecting the existing student profiles of students currently enrolled in our program with our consultant from Landmark Outreach. We also held meetings with our elementary teams to look at the master schedule to see if there were any revisions we could make to the schedule for this year, as well as next, to really maximize service delivery for our students. Currently, we're creating program descriptions as well as entrance and exit criteria for our elementary and middle school programs, because as our students are transitioning from elementary to middle school, we want to ensure that we have a program that meets their needs. This really applies to literacy, so we are looking at analyzing the current staffing members that we have in our district and what training or certifications they have in regard to literacy, and then really looking to ensure that staff at each of our buildings has the necessary skill set and training to meet the needs of our students. And if not, how are we going to change that for next year? Oh, my slides might have been different. Okay. No, that's okay. The next one is about instructional assistants. So our assistant directors have created a process for tracking our instructional assistants, and they're currently analyzing those positions to determine whether or not we should be reallocating those positions for different qualified staff members for next year, which might be BCBAs or it could be special educators. That's okay. In looking at short and long-term planning, our out-of-district coordinator is really analyzing the profiles of students who are currently out of district, as well as the trends for students who might be in process for potentially leaving our district. Our assistant directors are really looking at the current number of students on IEPs and the impact of regular education interventions, as well as supports for those students and how that impacts the referrals to special education to really get a bigger picture for our district. And lastly, we are looking to utilize Medicaid funds for a funding source for our district. So this is something that hasn't been done in the past, or it might have been done a long time ago. So the first step is really training our staff. So we have a third-party billing system that we use, and we have trained our related service providers in what the program entails, the requirements, and the students that fit that profile. We've also trained our office staff within our office who would be part of this claiming process. And next, we are really looking at ways to utilize our existing platform, which is PowerSchool, as a way to submit claims within the system. Part of this process has really been informing families of what this process and program is designed to do. And so we have started digitizing those forms and sending those electronically to families so that they have an understanding of what this is about. Dr. Bauer also included some information in one of his weekly updates that really tried to showcase what this program is designed to do. Any questions? Yes.
I think my question might fall under your short-term planning category. I actually received a call from someone who had received a communication from your department about doing some iReady testing outside of a sub-separate environment, which was outlined in their IEP. They were looking to maybe have the testing done in the regular classroom, and we're looking for the parents' approval via email. Is that something? Could you explain like where does that fall into the planning that's going on right now?
Sure. iReady is an assessment that currently is being used at the middle school, and so what I'm wondering is what time of day that assessment was occurring, and really part of that is thinking about the students' IEPs, their accommodations, but also time of day and depending on the setting. So I don't know the logistics of how that assessment was administered, but those are conversations that we can be having at yearly meetings when we meet with families to talk about those are accommodations and for what assessments are they being implemented, and are there times in which those aren't implemented and why?
But should a parent be agreeing to something like that via email where it changes the conditions of the IEP? I guess is my question. And this is as far as I know,
Yeah.
but that's how it appeared to me.
That's a tough question for me to answer because I don't have all the specifics. So I don't know if there was a meeting. I don't know if there was a phone call. And sometimes we try to get in touch with families, and for whatever reason, email might be a last resort. But no, I would prefer to have that as an in-person meeting.
Thank you.
Christina, thanks for this. Question on the I think it's kind of out of the box thinking about using the Medicaid funds, which is kind of a cool thing to do, generate some revenue. Are there other insurances we were able to bill for? Is
No, only Medicaid.
Only Medicaid. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just first of all, the use of the Medicaid funds that we recover. That's, I assume, for physical therapy, occupational therapy that we can bill to Medicare literally. Using those as a funding source, terrific idea. Secondly, all of this, the fact that you've jumped on this after the audit, makes a lot of sense, if nothing else, because we're coming into budget season. And I have to believe that a lot of these items, a lot of what you're looking at, won't, at the very least, will have some reallocation consequences. We're going to do this and not that. And the fact that you've jumped on this so quickly, because the audit wasn't that long ago, I appreciate the speed with which you're addressing the issues here. So keep it up, and I'm sure we'll see the results of this at budget time. Thank you.
Everything everyone else said I guess for me specifically, and I don't know if you have any projections of what the district can save by leveraging Medicaid.
I do not have a projection because the first step is to make sure that parents understand the process because I need their permission to be able to submit claims.
Gotcha.
So that's what's currently happening now.
Okay.
This is new to families because this hasn't been something that we've been doing. So when they get an automated email, they're wondering, is this spam? What is this? And so those are the pieces that we're working on now. So we're talking about this at team meetings to make sure that families know that this is something that is applicable.
Awesome. This is fantastic. Great idea. One more question. And I was wondering about, like, in regards to future planning, I mean, is there a sense of there are clearly students who will eventually be out of district? I know that there's an effort to recognize who and potentially where and what programs can mitigate it, but is there also the ability to kind of future cast
Yes.
of what? And that's what I would really, not right now, but I think it's a great content for the budget planning session, so we have an understanding of how to plan and how to inform the community of, you know, future expenses and planning like that. So thank you for that. This has been a very refreshing update.
You're welcome. Thank
Any
you for your
other
time.
questions, comments?
No, and the committee, I'll bring back, you know, we talked, you know, because the audit was huge. Just trying to break it down into actionable pieces, you know, and the public deserves to know the information we're trying to do. More will come out in the budget piece. And certainly I know that we have two of, I'd like to point out,
Yes, absolutely.
Derek Munyon and Laura De La Cruz are here, our elementary and secondary assistant directors who've been instrumental in working with Christina to bring change and working directly, as they say, on the ground floor with special education. So we appreciate that. And Angelique Lacoste, she's not here tonight.
Yeah, she's not here tonight, but I wouldn't be able to do this work without the three of them.
Yeah, so they've been a great team.
Fantastic update. Thank you so much. And competency determination update. Yeah.
Okay. Oops. Sorry if that was a late add-on to that. Hopefully that link works.
No, maybe. Yep. Okay.
So for competency determination, there was a document in your folder, but also here's the accompanying slideshow. Just to really cut to the chase, so as MCAS was eliminated as a graduation requirement, each district now is tasked with creating a competency determination policy for the local graduation requirement. So not to get confused, like we already have our local like graduation requirements, but we need to have a base level competency determination that says the students have accomplished this in conjunction with the graduation requirements. Now they can receive a Danvers high school diploma. So all public schools have to create the competency determination policy. This has to move quickly, actually. I'm not asking for policy approval tonight, but we wanted to bring this to the board's attention because we're going to come back in February with more specific language. But we have to do this, and you know we're going to boil this down where, honestly, we have to get this done because the class of 2025, we have to have this in line. The good news is that many in the class of 2025, as far as I know, they've already passed the MCAS, so that really right now is their competency determination, so they're fine to graduate. But we really need to focus in on like what is the competency determination, like what is their policy. So we have done research with other districts, all the superintendents and directors, we're all talking like what are we going to do here, and we're looking to keep it very simple based on our core subjects that would meet the competency determination. So, you know, 2 core science courses, including biology with passing grade, 9th and 10th grade math, minimally algebra 1 and geometry, and then 9th and 10th grade ELA courses with passing grades. That would be in itself the competency determination. Our courses are aligned with the Massachusetts standards, so if they've done passing work, they've completed this, then they would then in turn have their competency determination. Couple that with our graduation requirements would be enough to receive their Danvers High School diploma. I'm going kind of fast, but it's not as complicated. So I apologize. I really brushed on my presentation, so the heading is incorrect here. I know. But the students who do not meet this requirement, again, I believe the class of 2025, they've all met that. But we have to have a mechanism in place for students who do not meet this requirement for the competency determination. So then we need to monitor and support the juniors and seniors to make sure they pass the class in relevant subjects or make up the coursework from grades 10 and 11 that meets the standards of the curriculum frameworks. That's one piece. And we also have to look out for those who left school prior to 2025 without meeting competency requirements, i.e. not passing the MCAS. So we have to be able to work with anybody that was the case. It's very few. And this is the thing that we're looking for DESE guidance for. And basically we really are on our own as a district, as all the other districts. Like, they gave us the guidelines. Now we need to work on this and reach out to those who have not completed this and be able to offer this and work with them. So that's in a nutshell. So basically, what is it? What do we have to do? What does competency determination mean? And then for those that achieve it, great. And then that who do not, then what remediation are we going to take place? And that's as simple as competency determination. Based on now, there is not an MCAS as a graduation requirement. So we shared this with our high school staff today. Mary's been working with our high school principal, Peter tomorrow, and working with his team. So they're going to be working back with to solidify this in the more of a policy that we can bring to you in February for discussion, and ultimately we need to get this approved kind of quick because it's for a timely basis. But I think we're in a good place, Mary. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add. Probably more than I needed to.
So just for context, Mr. Chairman, so what happens is the ballot question eliminates the MCAS requirement, but does not eliminate the requirement that the students meet the framework requirements.
Correct.
And so what we're really doing here is sort of an alternate demonstration that they have met those requirements. But that's the only real change. No MCAS, we still have to meet what the state says we have to meet.
That's right. So now you get into local control, which is our local governance and determining what makes a student successful. And we deliver these baseline courses that would provide that competency to carry on. Coupled with, we have our overall graduation requirements as well. But this is the baseline. So, i.e. somebody that might move in from out of state. We get that happen. So how do you work on this piece? So the retake of MCAS really is not there, right? And I think we will still have MCAS because that is a measurement of assessment that will continue. And I believe they'll still offer it to sophomores because it does tie into the Adams Scholarship, which a certain score a student can receive. I believe it's tuition free.
No, it's like $3,000 a year scholarship for if you make the advance.
It used to be free, but now it's free.
It used to be free to state colleges.
So again, we don't want to complicate this issue, and know we have experts at our school level that will finalize this, and we'll bring forth, something very similar, we believe, to the policy draft that we shared essentially, which is in your drive, but I broke it down a bit.
And the biology retest in February is still be open to kids to retake it just so that they could qualify for that scholarship if they want to. So you'll see the MCAS being offered and then retest so that kids have opportunity to be eligible for the scholarship.
It's a really interesting concept, hearing it really for the first time for me. I'm a science guy, and so it's nice that biology's in there. But my brethren from the history department are sorely lacking once again. That's my first takeaway. But you mentioned keeping it simple, and I think it's a good place to start because maybe not so much in this district, although could be wrong. Kids moving in and out, especially in high numbers in urban settings, that's going to be a logistical nightmare. So to be able to, like you said, to keep track of those kids and help them if they don't pass, to meet that minimum requirement is going to be incredibly important.
I appreciate bringing up that point, and I don't want to demean, the quality that is required to show competency by simplifying it. We just know that we've had a system in place, right? And we feel that it's effective, the courses that we offer, and because they're aligned with frameworks. And we'll still have the accountability of the MCAS too, but we don't want to overthink this in the sense that we have a process in place, because ultimately we're dealing with our students and our families, and just to reassure, like, we have a plan and we're ready to go. This doesn't mean that we can't refine over the years as we go forward. I like the fact there's variability with that second science class, if this is what we settle on. Like, we have the baseline biology, which is really kind of a gateway, but then the student may go engineering, or they may use a different, which is great. And sometimes too, the math, that might change at some point, but again, keeping a baseline, I think, is most efficient at this time. So I appreciate you saying that. I taught history myself.
If there are headaches, we don't even know what comes, right? I mean, it's possible. So, thank you.
Next item is the search process for, unfortunately, an assistant superintendent.
Saddest part of the evening.
The saddest part of the evening. I had to say that out loud.
Well, this, as you noted, we provided information to the community that a great Mary Wormers is looking to retire and stated her intent to retire. I have to get ready for the reality myself, and there will be opportunity to celebrate all that she's done for our district, although I don't know in one celebration if that's even possible, but we'll keep you posted. There is something planned for Mary. But again, she's very humble, and I had to limit my comments to she made me limit. I wanted to go on and on, but that just attests to her great work, and I don't want to embarrass her any further. But the reality of the matter is that we need to work on this. This is a school committee hire. So the reason I wanted to present this out tonight is that we start laying the groundwork, but we just want to receive permission to move forward with the process, and then order to bring you the finalists to do the interview here, and then work to make the decision. But as we've done this, we put together a search committee composition that is broad-based. We're looking for a lot of stakeholders. It's a fairly large committee, which I think is important, because the assistant superintendent is more than just curriculum and teaching and learning. As you know, the ability to write a massive amount of grants, I don't know how she does it, but also navigate a lot of the items and really to work in conjunction. There's a lot to being an assistant superintendent, so it's a key hire. We have Julie Pasternak and Christina Ryan will be the chairs of the first level search committee. And again, it's a cross-section. Janet's collecting those that have put inquiries in for those who would like to be part of the committee. We're meeting tomorrow to sort through that and then reach out to those to see where the composition is and let those know if they're in or if they aren't being able to work on this particular part. I do need to add the fact that we're going to add, I'll put out a survey as well for what you're looking for in your next assistant superintendent. I need to frame that people may not even know all the things that Mary does, and it's kind of hard to put that on paper, but we want to get the feedback to help guide this process as well. So ultimately, we look to have a meeting this week to really start to vet through, the resumes. We have over 32 in the pool right now, and some really strong applicants for this position. And we're actually getting an early start on this. Right now is when the superintendent hires go, then usually the assistant superintendents follow, then the principals. But we didn't want to wait because this is such a big hire. Plus, we want to bring somebody in that can then work with Mary and transition through the spring as well as possible. We're looking at the January 22nd and 23rd for the first round interviews. And then from that committee is going to be charged with bringing forward to the second round, 3 finalists that we will then have a second round of interviews, reference checks, and then bring the final round to the school committee with your approval, either on February 10th or 24th, just depending on where that falls. The 10th is the next regularly scheduled meeting, but the 24th is the budget hearing, but we could do that on either, depending on what works for the committee schedule. But what I'm asking for is permission to proceed forward with this process. And I know that at this point we have a school committee member that would be on this first round. That way they can help inform the committee as we go through this process. So that's where I wanted to leave it at this.
So, Mr. Chair, if we deny permission, does Mary have to stay?
I think that's a fantastic idea.
I figured.
Mary, you're a gem. You know what you mean to this community, so I'll stop. I don't want to embarrass you either. But
It's like Hotel California. You can never leave.
okay, motion to grant. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Motion to proceed with the search process for an assistant superintendent.
Second.
Well, you make the motion.
So moved.
And I'll make the second.
All right. All those in favor? Oh, discussion?
When you write up all that Mary does, will you please make sure you put in van driver as well?
Small engine repair? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The motion carries. Thank you. All right. And now to order of business. We have the consent agenda. Motion to approve the homeschool request, field trip request, and personnel memo.
So moved.
Oh, but that'll be, can I get a second first?
I'll second it.
All right, discussion.
So I had a question. I know I talked to Mr. Bauer, Dr. Bauer about, I didn't see it in the agenda, but last week the basketball boosters wanted to proceed with running the snack bar, and I know they had submitted, but they thought it was too late to make this meeting. Is that something that we could? You got it today, okay? They mentioned to me last week that they put it in last week. I just want to make sure before. Okay, all right, okay, that's perfectly fine. Just wanted to make sure that I was in the know of what I was asked. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries. Minutes, Mr. Secretary. Hot mic.
I move that we approve the minutes. I move that we approve and release the minutes from the December 9th, 2024 regular meeting.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Communications. Do we have any communication items? I hear none. Anything from legislation?
Yes. Got an email from Sally Kearns, our state representative, and let's see. She said it happened that Dan and I were both in the emergency shelter call earlier today. Superintendent Bauer was excellent, friendly, but clear about the district's needs and expectations. She's also scheduled to appear at our February 10th meeting with Senator Lovely, and she'd be happy to discuss anything we'd like. In terms of the school budget, please know that both Joan and I continue to let budget writers here at the State House know how dependent our school districts are on both Chapter 70 and transportation funding. There's recently been filed a supplemental budget that we're watching closely. We are confident that payments will be made through the end of the school year. The regular budget process will begin soon, and we'll be using the best possible funding for Chapter 70, the circuit breaker, and transportation. An act relative to strengthening Massachusetts economic leadership as students, parents, and teachers and guidance counselors contemplate next steps for Danvers High graduates. We're investing in the life sciences industry and the clean climate technology sector, as well as this bill, which is quite extensive. Happy to share more on the 10th. The Economic Development Bill also includes provisions for an educator e-bill, educator diversity. It allows the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to develop an alternative certification process for teachers who may face challenges passing the educator certification exam, but can otherwise demonstrate their competency as teachers. This change will help Massachusetts diversify the K through 12 educator workforce. There's also funding for library construction, MassWorks, infrastructure, and AI and systems across the state. They also passed bills related to healthcare policy to address what happened with Steward Healthcare, and they passed legislation to make drugs for chronic conditions like asthma, hypertension, and diabetes more affordable. Final note, Falcon Eyes wowed the entire State House when they came to perform at the Grand Staircase in December. People throughout the building came to listen, and the group was absolutely stellar. So says our state rep.
Wow, thank you so much for the detailed update. Subcommittee liaison updates. Anyone have an update? Okay. I hear not, oh, I hear Mr. Bauer.
Sorry, it's okay, Chair.
No,
Just a couple quick updates.
Sure.
Our safety, District Safety Committee will meet Monday, January 27th at 3 o'clock here at Holton Richmond. Our Policy Subcommittee, which wasn't able to meet in December, I'm looking to reschedule that back to back with our budget meeting if possible, January 22nd, a virtual. I'll send that out to the committee. We have a few policy items, including competency determination, but a few others that have come about that I wanted to discuss in that meeting. Danvers Cares, the next meeting is February 3rd at 2:30 at Danvers High School. And DEEP is coming up a meeting Wednesday as well. And then CPAC, Christine and Ryan has been working with CPAC to connect with them involved with strategic planning. So if there's more information, I'll be happy to share that with the committee. And then the last but not least, the consortium, the NEC. We have a meeting on Friday just to talk about negotiations. They're going into contract negotiations. So there's a team, and we'll meet on Friday to talk about where that's going. So keep our fingers crossed on that. Danvers Cares, February 3rd, Monday, February 3rd.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bauer. With that, I'd like to put out a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Good night, Danvers. Our next meeting will be February 3rd, and that will be the budget workshop. Thank you.